Hey, everybody. This is the Communities Work Group Device Management Meeting, July 9th. Okay, so, excuse me. We share the agenda.
Don, you're muted if you're talking.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, I've been talking to myself, I guess. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I think it's going to be a short meeting unless other people have topics, because we just have a couple topics. One, I wanted to give an update on 131 status. Code freeze is in 2 weeks. And so Patrick has a PR out there that's a work in progress. Please take a look if you're interested in providing some input or reviews. There's a couple of open items under discussion still around the API, and then we'll drill more into the implementation over the next couple of weeks. The other item is that I think this issue is still relevant about the ask for help. I haven't looked at it. I was out last week, so I haven't actually looked at it yet to see if anybody's commented on it. But I think that it would be useful. Probably still, we can get some help around pests or other things. And Patrick has some asks there. Any questions on that item or any other comments, Kevin? Patrick couldn't be here today, so.
Nothing else to say there. No.
Thanks. Then the other thing I wanted to bring up was driver implementations for 131. And I wanted to find out if anyone here is intending to build a driver implementation. I think NVIDIA, I can put you down for that, Kevin.
Yeah, so before I update the NVIDIA one, my plan is to update the example driver one first. More because then other people can take that and run with it, especially if they're doing it for the first time.
Okay. Awesome. And then NVIDIA GPU and RDMA, or which ones are you do both of those, or
the GPU for sure. I'll need to talk to the guy that did the RDMA one. It's not even open source anyway, so this is the only one that we've actually made visible so far.
Yeah, I wanted to add a driver for GPUs and NICs, and the NICs also had this RDMA.
So yeah, thank you, Antonio. So I was gonna put myself down, not necessarily to write it, although maybe I will, but I'm working with the TPU team on the TPU driver.
Okay,
yeah, so there's some folks here at Google who will work on that. I'm putting down sort of maybe the responsible person, not necessarily the person who will do it. But Antonio, I can put you down for Google. Are you saying a Google NIC driver, or are you saying a NIC driver for like SRIOV general?
No, I want the ones that I want to check is the GPUs plus the Mellanox.
Yeah, so that's the one that Moshe had worked on in the past. That's the one we have an internal one for using classic DRA. So why don't you put down Antonio and Moshe Levy is his name. And we had that meeting, what was it, a couple months ago, Antonio? We should do that again. Now that we have the API for 131 a bit more finalized, and figure out how we could adapt what Moshe has done and hopefully open source it. And
that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh,
DPU is what he said.
DPU. Ah, thank you. So it's DPU. It's one driver that handles, or they're DPU NIC combined devices. You're saying? I see.
Yep.
Okay. What about Antonio? Can I put you down for Google NIC? So where I'm coming from here is in 131, we unfortunately are not able to deliver the partitionable or the partitionable device, which is kind of how I wanted to do the compound device, a NIC and a GPU that come together as one unit. But we'll have the topological alignment, and that means that that NVIDIA and Intel and Google and whoever else wants to do a NIC and a GPU and a TPU and whatever drivers where we have, it doesn't apply to TPU, but for GPU and NIC, then the alignment issue of, say, the PCIe route, we need to agree on like the attribute name. And then there's also this thing I talked about last time, I think, where I want to, and this would go in the example driver, I hope, Kevin, so I'll work with you on that, would be
Mhm.
an example of where we can drop a file somewhere on the node, and we can, augment the data that the driver is publishing, so that the node author, with additional information about where the node fits into the larger network, can add data that the driver's not aware of. So I want to make sure all these pieces kind of come together, at least in our examples, because although we're not officially setting a standard for these things, they will become de facto things, and like at least let's hope that in alpha we can have things work together. So
Or we could standardize
Antonio,
on like alpha.k8.io/whatever or something, at least for now.
exactly, something like that, yeah. So can I put you down for Google NIC,
Yes.
Antonio? Okay. And then my other question, and I don't know that we have the right people here to answer this, oh yeah, Neha.
Hey John. Sorry, I missed the last part. So how's Google NIC? Is it like a special NIC driver we're talking about? Google has, which
That's
needs
just that's just a GCE thing. Like that's not a general purpose thing. That's so our VMs have Google NICs. They don't necessarily have like their
So
software.
someone could use it on GKE, for example.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but look,
Just a
but
regular GPU NIC, right? So not really Google NIC.
yeah, the Google NIC is just the how it's exposed to the VM, right? But I think that we
Got it.
can generalize this model to make these NICs. I mean, at the end, it's an interface in the node, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I like.
so that's what I was gonna.
Sorry. So yeah, making it generalized would probably help. Like, is it if you're talking about GPU NIC, InfiniBand NIC?
What I was suggesting is imagine that you whatever, let's say we offload the driver load, right? And the operating system has an ETH0 plus RDMA, whatever, right? And that you are able to get that thing. So that means that the driver just only need to put together these interfaces into some namespaces, right? And that's ideally that's the thing, that if we are able to find a driver that has the right abstraction, we can make this work for everybody.
Okay. So what I'll suggest is that we Antonio, Neha, you want me to put you down too to work with Antonio on this? Like the idea is so you probably, it might end up being a framework.
Yeah. It makes, I like that.
Because you are going to have custom attributes associated with your particular vendor, like a vendor name, for example, right? Like maybe we don't care about that almost ever, and so we don't bother publishing it, but theoretically, you might. So this would be great, yeah, if folks could work on that.
But my thinking here is, at the end we are going to do a lot of things that are going to be common, and what I don't know if from these common things are we able to extrapolate to something general or not. That's the experiment I want to run and say, oh, we at the end and doing the same things in the same place. Let's see if we can agree. If not, I mean, it's reusing code. I don't see
Yeah.
that.
Abstract it out to a library. So this is what we did through many iterations with classic DRA, at least, is that we figured out the common things that were going to be in any driver. And now those are all in tree in Kubernetes under staging something or other, dynamic resource allocation, kubelet plugin, and then a whole bunch of library codes there that all drivers will want to pull in to use to implement their drivers. So it handles a lot of the, like, well, at least in 131, one of the big things that it does is that it will publish your resource slices for you, right? You don't have to worry about the mechanics of how do I talk to the API server and how do I do the retries and how do I do all that. There's just a function you can call from this library called publish resources. You pass it the array of resource slices that you want, and it does all the magic to keep everything in sync for you, right? And so in theory,
Awesome.
you guys could have a similar library for generalizing how you do NICs, and maybe we eventually push it in tree to Kubernetes, or maybe its own separate project that any NIC vendor can consume. But I think it's the same kind of idea, and it grew over time, right? Like we didn't know exactly what all we wanted in this library on day one, but we figured it out over a couple of releases.
Awesome. Okay. Any other drivers we see being able to, or we want to deliver? And like part of the goal here is, okay, we have a couple different drivers for a couple different types of things, and then we see how our effectively experimental ideas about how to coordinate allocations across those drivers works, right? The match attribute stuff, and in the future, if we have other similar constraints. So I would like to have a couple of different drivers. Is there anybody else who was interested in creating a driver for their particular set of hardware or in this time frame that I can put down as accountable? All right. Okay, well, those are the topics I had. Is there anybody else? We had a couple of things in the future topics, but I don't think we need to talk about this right now. And we kind of already did talk about it, I think, in a previous meeting a little bit. And Doug, it looks like you're here. You want to bring this topic up? I assume this is Doug Smith.
That was me, and I've been on vacation for 2 weeks, and I totally forgot what I was gonna bring up. So let's keep it in the parking lot, and I'll return to my notes. So thanks for the ping, but I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Okay, then, well, why don't we unless there's any other topics, let's give the time back to everybody.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
John. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.